It's the most wonderful time of the year. Just kidding. It's Hall of Fame ballot time. They're about to go in, and we're going to discuss how people are doing, and we're going to show you what our mock-up Hall of Fame ballots look like. Next, on a live edition of Locked On Yankees.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm Stacy Gotsoulias. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. With me, as usual, my co-host, Brian McKeon. Brian.
Stacy, what's going on? Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. So as I teased up top, it's Hall of Fame Day. Not yet. We're almost there. And we're going to discuss how people are doing. How's Stacy doing? How's Ichiro doing? There are a lot of ex-Yankees, different tenures, of course, but a lot of former Yankees on that ballot. We're going to talk about how they're doing, and then we're going to reveal our own ballots for all of you to destroy in the comments, and then we're going to talk to you in segment 3 about that and about anything you'd like to discuss. So without further ado, these numbers that I'm about to read to you guys are from the Hall of Fame tracker by Ryan Thibodeau. Now, I can't remember how many years Ryan has been tracking these, but writers will send in pictures of their ballots for him and let him know how they're voting before they send it off to the Hall of Fame. And as of 2:35 p.m. on Tuesday, we're recording this at 4 o'clock, 141 public ballots. So that's about 38.5% of the 392 ballots that were sent out. Ichiro is still at 100%. Not that shocking, but that will probably drop down when the non-public ballots get mailed into the Hall of Fame.
I don't know about that because all the ballots have to be public now. That's changed over the last couple of years, and I think now that's why you got Derek Jeter as the 100%. Well, no, Derek Jeter.
Well, no,
I don't
mean non-public, meaning not being able to be shown. I mean the ones that aren't being sent to Ryan beforehand.
Yeah. No, I'm saying that,
usually higher numbers like that will drop when the guys or men and women who don't send them in to Ryan, it always does. It always does.
I agree, but my opinion is I think over the next few years or decades even, you're going to see more guys get in on the 100% of the ballot, especially sheer superstar, no doubt Hall of Famers like Ichiro. Right. I think are going to get in with the 100% of the ballot because I think that's the beauty of what making these ballots public has done for the sport is guys are a little more afraid to be called out on, why did you not have Ichiro at your Hall of Fame ballot? And the old age excuse of, Ted Williams didn't get on the first year, so no one gets in on the first year. It's not fair to modern day players. Just because you did something that way 100 years ago doesn't mean it should be done that way still with all things in the world, not just with sports, but especially with the Hall of Fame ballot. And I think, and this only applies, Stacy, for surefire Hall of Famers. There are guys that get in that are debatable and stuff like that, but there are certain guys that retire that from before they even retire that they are surefire Hall of Famers. Yeah. And, I think it was case in point, Mariano got in with 100% of the vote. And I believe he was the first guy to get in with 100% of the vote. And it was a big deal because no one had ever done that before, but Mariano Rivera was probably one of the most surefire Hall of Famers ever. And then you got Derek Jeter, who never had a scandal, 5 world championships, batting titles, the whole thing, you can name it. Really another case of a surefire Hall of Famer, not really debatable. And Derek Jeter got 99.7% of the ballot, and there was one person that left him off. And it wound up being leaked public, but the person did not have to make it public, that it was a writer from Boston who didn't vote Derek Jeter in. Because why? Because that writer grew up a Red Sox fan, or because he doesn't like Derek Jeter for whatever the reason is. And I think those guys are in fear of A, being called out publicly, and B, being stripped of their title to vote on the Hall of Fame. Because if you can't do the job objectively and vote on who's a Hall of Famer and who's not, then you shouldn't be doing the job.
They're not going to strip. They haven't stripped people. There are people who haven't written about baseball in 20 years who are still voting for the Hall of Fame because they have that grandfathered in. Like, they don't strip people of anything because of their.
But I'm saying that they should be stripped of that. And my point to the whole thing is, I think this will change because I think the ballots being put in, I guess, public, I think does have some people get called out, does allow for people to get criticized. But also, Stacy, a lot of these writers that have been, writing forever and haven't been writing for 20 years now because they're in an old age home, they're going to die soon. So you're going to have other people, that are going to be voting on the Baseball Hall of Fame, and it's going to become more of a legitimate process. So, will Ichiro get him 100% of the vote? I sure hope so. But I agree with you. That number might dip before the Hall of Fame. This is the part of the argument that gets me so aggravated when it comes to the Hall of Fame, because it makes no sense.
It's because they always do. It's because you have those holdouts who have that weird mentality of either the fact that, oh, well, Ichiro didn't play here the whole time. Who cares? While he was here, he was a Hall of Famer. So just vote him in. And if I don't understand this whole, we should be out of this thing of, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? If he's a Hall of Famer, he's a Hall of Famer. Just put him in.
Well, that's why the 10-year rule, I think, is a little ridiculous. You see guys, they start out at, 27% of the vote. Then the next year they're at 40. Then they're at 52%. Then and they climb their way up to 75. And then we celebrate in the 9th year of eligibility that he got 75% of the vote. What made him not a Hall of Famer those years previously? He didn't play and improve his stats anyway. So, it's all a bunch of baloney sometimes.
In recent years, it's because they made it so it's 10. And some people are like, all right, I'm going to use my 10 for this, for surefire guys, and then I'll leave this guy for next year, kind of thing. Some people were doing. You're also.
But you don't have to do 10, Stacy, I don't think, right? You don't have to.
No, you don't have to. You can.
Yeah.
You should. If there are 10 guys on the Hall of Fame ballot who are Hall of Famers, you put all 10 on. I don't understand why.
Agreed. But those 10, that doesn't mean to give somebody a Hall of Fame vote. If you've got 9 and you got 1 left, that doesn't mean to give someone a Hall of Fame vote because he was always a nice guy to me. And I think you've had that too, of guys that were in clubhouses for years, and somebody was sort of someone's sort of on the fence, and they get the Hall of Fame vote from somebody because they were nice to them in the clubhouse. That's not the point of the award.
It's just funny because I didn't want to get into this, but let's get into it. The whole steroid thing, right? David Ortiz's name was always involved in it because he was on that first list, and everyone's like, oh, well, that list doesn't count and blah, blah, blah. He was always surrounded by it, right? Yeah. The cloud of steroids. Didn't affect him one bit going to the Hall of Fame. Why? Because he was jolly and funny, and they voted him in on the first ballot.
Yeah, everybody loved him. And by the way, David Ortiz, that list that he was on in 2003 is the exact same list that Alex Rodriguez is on that he was accused of. And when Alex Rodriguez came out publicly and said, I didn't do steroids, no one believed him. And when David Ortiz came out and said, I didn't do steroids, everyone believed him. I don't know why we chose who to believe and who not to believe in that case. Now, it wound up getting proved on A-Rod, and he got caught multiple times after. I'm not making an excuse for A-Rod. But, to me, the argument that I've always had, and I actually I wrote a final paper in college on this topic, on what the status of the Hall of Fame should be. And at the end of the day, Stacy, the Hall of Fame's mission statement, if you've ever been there when you walk in, says that it is a museum dedicated to telling the story of Major League Baseball.
Yep.
Not a moral police museum. This is the list of the best guys that ever played. Not the list of these are the most fun guys to ever play. You are supposed to walk through that building and know the story of Major League Baseball from the start to where we are now. And that's my whole point on the steroid era, is if you want to say they cheated the game, you want to say any reason, fine. We can argue that all day because, Stacy, there's plenty of Major League Baseball players that, and people around the league, and I'm sure you can attest to it too, that'll tell you that after the strike, baseball was falling apart and the steroid era saved baseball. Regardless, you cannot tell the story of Major League Baseball without including the names like Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire and Alex Rodriguez and David Ortiz. Those names have to be included.
And Barry Bonds, hello?
Exactly. Those names have to be included to tell the story of Major League Baseball. So to me, it's unfair to not include those guys in the Hall of Fame. Just like, I don't agree with a word that comes out of his mouth. But, Kurt Schilling, I don't think he's a great dude, and I don't agree with the word that comes out of his mouth. Still a Hall of Famer. It's not the moral police museum. It's not. And he's got a debate with his numbers. but you can't keep Kurt. I mean, to me, Kurt Schilling would get in the Hall of Fame if people voted objectively. He would. His
if he
story
didn't
and the
say that
games
he wanted journalists to be hung on trees, that didn't help his case either.
Again, I'm not arguing for the person that he is. I'm not arguing for his beliefs. That's not
but
what I'm
just saying that is a big reason why, because he was kind of in that trajectory, and then
I think he got into the 60s. I think he got into the upper 60s in voting, and then he made those comments and it kept him out.
He basically shot himself in the foot. All right, quickly, because we have to go to the second section of our show. So Ichiro's at 100, Cece's at 92.7, Billy Wagner's at 84.1, Beltran is at 79.5.
That's an interesting one.
Again, some of these numbers will drop, but they'll also go up because more votes will come in. And then as for first timers, after Cece and Ichiro, the next closest one is Felix Hernandez at 25.2. So that's quite a drop off. Dustin Pedroia is second in that group at 12.6.
Which is crazy.
And the next highest is Russell Martin at just below 5%. So he's not even
he's not going to get to next year yet.
Of making it. And just for kicks, the PED guys, A-Rod is at 41.7, Manny is at 37.7, and sorry, Yankee fans, Andy Pettit, because he's a PED guy, 31.8%.
Yeah, Yankee Hall of Famer, not Major League Baseball Hall of Famer.
So coming up next, we're going to reveal our mock Hall of Fame ballots, which should be interesting. But first, don't forget, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button on our videos, hit the notification so you know when our videos go live. You can also join the Locked On Yankees Insiders Club. The link is in the description. You'll get texts from us. You can text us questions, comments, reactions to trades and signings. We send out lineups during the season, roster moves, breaking news, so you don't have to keep checking social media. There's a 14-day free trial. Coming up, we reveal our Hall of Fame ballots.
From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs, they're better with FanDuel because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. It's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's all available on the FanDuel app, which gives you everything you need from live bets to same-game parlays and so much more. Guys, future bets for the NFL are live and well. You can bet Ohio State, Notre Dame in the final. The Rangers are getting heated up too. So there's a lot of places that you can get, make some extra cash if you want on FanDuel.com. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's all available on FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel. It's an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
I can't switch it fast enough.
Yeah, it's confusing me, the left and right thing, but
I know.
So be it. Stacy, I do want to say before we do reveal our ballots, the first time, second time thing, I really don't like. Some guys, I really do feel like that their numbers pumped a little bit because of how much they were liked in the public eye. Mm-hmm. I will say, Felix Hernandez not being higher because this is his first year on the ballot is absurd. Felix Hernandez is one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball for like a decade. The fact that he's not higher on that list is ridiculous. CC and Ichiro obviously are first timers. Two things I want to point out here. I am stunned at how high Carlos Beltran is. Now I know, like you said, some of them are in public and some of them are public. Beltran at 80% of the vote right now means there's a pretty good chance he's going to sneak his way in at some point in time. Mm-hmm. I watched a majority of Carlos Beltran's career, like from he was through my peak baseball interest. Stacy, I did not see a Hall of Famer when I was watching him. I really didn't. And we could do a whole other episode on this, but to me, over the last few years, it has really become the Hall of Very Good. It is not. I mean, do you agree or disagree? You can disagree, sure, but do you see a Hall of Famer when you watch Beltran's career?
Let's reveal our ballots first.
Sure. Okay.
And we're going to go with yours first because alphabetical, Brian goes before Stacy. So here is Brian's ballot.
Yeah, so my shoe-in for sure is Felix Hernandez circled off over there. A lot of you are going to have a problem with Andrew Jones not being on there. I'll explain. Manny Ramirez I have on, Alex Rodriguez, CC Sabathia, and Ichiro Suzuki. There's obviously an argument for Billy Wagner at the end over there. I'll agree with all of you. That is my ballot. I don't believe, Stacy, in the notion that you need to have 10 guys circled off if there aren't 10 Hall of Famers on the ballot. You don't need to have 10 Hall of Famers. my belief in the Hall of Fame is A, the museum should tell the story of the history of baseball, but B, the guys that are honored with plaques that are voted in should be the best of the best collection of players to ever play the sport, not a guy who was really good for 8 years. That's not how the Hall of Fame should work. And I do feel like Billy Wagner gets his name put on there because of that, and he's going to get in. But I do feel like that the most out of all of them, I think Andrew Jones is one of them. I know Andrew Jones is a tremendous fielder, but go look up Andrew Jones' hitting numbers. Not Hall of Fame worthy, in my opinion. And they're Hall of really good worthy, not Hall of Fame. And the one that bothers me the most before we get to your ballot, and this one really bothers me, and his name is purely only at this number because he was a good guy, Dustin Pedroia. That one, I know he won an MVP. I know he won a Rookie of the Year. Stacy, give me a break. And I know he was well-loved by the writers, but Stacy, a Hall of Famer?
No,
the
but
guy was hurt for 90% of his career.
You know what I was shocked about? The Boston Globe writers all turned in their ballots to Ryan, and there were 6 of them. And only 2 out of those 6 voted for Pedroia, which I was actually shocked about because I thought that at least 4 out of the 6, or maybe even 5 out of the 6 would have put him on there just because he's Dustin Pedroia, and that they, either worked while he was with the Red Sox or I was actually surprised that it was only 2 out of the 6 Boston Globe writers who included him on there.
I mean, I look up I love going by players' numbers and comparing them. And let me just go over Pedroia's really quick for you, Stacy. He has a .299 career hitter, which is really fantastic, right? But he's got 1,800 career hits. To me, you're not a Hall. If you don't get over at least 2,500 hits, we're talking. I'll give you 2,200 maybe, depending on the kind of player you are. But definitely over 2,000 hits. He's not over 2,000 hits. His career on base is 365. That's really good. But Stacy, he's got 140 career home runs, 725 career RBIs. He's not a prolific base stealer. I don't know. I don't know where anybody looks at this and says that if he plays a full career,
but he's not going to make it. He's going to be
the fact that he's on 12% of the vote. I mean, that means that, and that's the point though. That means that there are guys that are circling his name based on, I really liked him. He was always good to me.
Or I grew up watching him and I think he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's just, Stacy, it's a major problem. And it's been a problem for a while, and it's going to continue to be because good player while he was on the field. But Stacy, he doesn't play 162 games 1 year in his career. Yeah. Not 1 year. Let's get to your ballot.
Oh, this is going to be a fun one. Here we go.
Ooh.
Look at there. I picked 10 because I'm going to be contrary. So actually, I can't even see the ballot now because the thing is blocking me. Do I have Abreu there?
Yes, you have Bobby Abreu, Carlos Beltran, Felix Hernandez, Andy Pettitte, Manny Ramirez, Alex Rodriguez, CC Sabathia, Ichiro Suzuki, Chase Utley, and Billy Wagner.
Okay, this graphic is way too long, but let me explain some of these. Okay. I know people are going to kill me for the Andy Pettitte thing, but I think that there's a lot of times where certain players are exalted for their playoff performances, and people are trying to not count Andy Pettitte and say that his playoff experience doesn't help him when it should, because he's one of the better pitchers in playoff history. And I think that should help him at least get a vote or something. The Manny A-Rod thing, Bud Selig's in the Hall of Fame. All the stuff about steroids is knocked out with Bud Selig. He turned a blind eye to steroids for most of the time that he was commissioner. He was basically putting needles into Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa's rear ends. And the only reason why they did that whole Mitchell report, like when the government got involved, that's when steroids were suddenly bad for baseball. Because as you said, the strike nearly ruined baseball. Like it really nearly ruined it. And those guys having that home run race, and then all the other guys who started hitting really brought fannies back into the seats. Billy Wagner, just get in there already. It's your 10th year. Okay. He's one of the better closers in history. And if there are other closers in there, he's one of the top guys from that group. And maybe like after them, you won't see that many more get in.
I can live with that. I can.
Right. I didn't pick Andrew Jones because of the domestic violence stuff.
But see, I don't think that's fair. I don't. I like if you think Andrew Jones is a Hall of Famer based on him as a baseball player, I don't think it's fair to judge him based on what happened off the field. And I'm not putting him in the hall of the hall of good people. I'm not, but there is no morality clause in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
There should be, Ben. There should be.
That's a different argument. That's a different argument, though.
Well, that's what my ballot is. That's what I'm explaining. So I'm not picking him for that. Beltran, I think he's good enough to be in the Hall of Fame. He might not be upper echelon Hall of Fame, but there's a range of guys in the Hall of Fame, and I think he's just above very good, and he was solid for a long time. That's how I feel about Abreu. I sort of feel the same way about Chase Utley as well. Ichiro Cece, obviously, come on.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you?
Those are easy.
Pick those guys. And then who am I left with?
The Bobby Abreu one, I vehemently disagree with. I don't think he's close.
Someone is doing a campaign on Blue Sky showing all of his numbers, and I was like, oh, okay. He kind of changed my mind on Bobby Abreu.
He played for 18 years till he was 40 years old. 2,400 hits, 288 home runs is not in the middle of the steroid era is not a great. That was in the middle of balls flying out of the park. 1,300 RBIs, 400 stolen bases. Certainly a good player, but I think looking at like the basic numbers too out front, only a 2-time All-Star, 1 Silver Slugger Award, 1 Gold Glove. I don't think that's enough of a range of 291 career batting average, 395 career on base. That's a really good on base percentage for a career. I don't look at Bobby Abreu and think I get what you're saying though, but I don't look at him and think Hall of Famer. I think there's more of a case for Andrew Jones because he has like 13 Gold Gloves or something.
Right, but no, and I would never, ever, ever, if I had a vote, ever vote for Omar Vizquel. And I don't know why people are. And I don't know why people are suddenly adding him. I know that he was campaigning for himself. And one writer actually admitted, he called me and he talked to me and, I changed my mind. And it's like,
which is ridiculous.
Which is ridiculous because he wasn't even like the 4th best player on his team while he was playing. And all he did was defense. No, that's not enough for Hall of Fame.
No. And again, to me, Stacy, I'll go a step further. If you have to publicly campaign for yourself to get in, then you're not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Like guys have done that, but yeah.
That's my point, though, is that's what bothers me always. And it bothers me at every Hall of Fame. It's not just with baseball, but every Hall of Fame is this way. That we either A, get too attached to players that we watched as a child and elevate them to above what they actually are. And B, we wind up putting in guys because, he was a nice guy. It was a good story, all that kind of stuff. And I think it should be reserved for the greatest of the greats to ever play. Like, again, Harold Baines getting in a few years ago. Lee Smith getting in a few years ago. There's certain players that we put in because, and we've seen this with the Football Hall of Fame too, where we're now putting in offensive linemen from the 1970s that are getting in that no one remembers. But, he was a really good guy to this writer. I don't think to me, if you have to sit in my perfect Hall of Fame, if you have to sit and have this debate back and forth over who isn't, maybe, kind of, sort of, then he's not a Hall of Famer. To me, it's got to be one of those yes, no, and we can there's a little bit of wiggle room for debate here, but like if you have to go on for hours and hours and hours and hours over a debate over who gets in or doesn't get in, then I'm sorry, Stacy, then we can't be doing this, I would say to your case, though, where you want there to be a morality clause and say there should be one, then at that point, then we should be petitioning to get guys out of the Hall of Fame at that point.
Oh, yeah.
because Ty Cobb doesn't deserve to be
if you're not going to
inch
put
close.
Pete Rose in for his betting, but now have everything sponsored by betting companies, then that's also
it's
but then
again,
he also has morality issues too, so it's kind of like aside from the betting, so it's like a whole thing. So coming up next, we'll look at some comments. I'm a little afraid, but we're going to look at some comments and talk to you guys about this in a moment. There we go.
Yeah, the comments are fascinating, by the way. I want to go to this one first because we didn't get to talk about this enough, and he is a Yankee. Jorge says, God, I have a love-hate relationship with Cece. I went to 10 to 12 games of him as a Yankee, and he lost every single game. Now looking back, he deserves to get in. That might just be your bad luck.
How did you go to 10 to 12 games where Cece started? And I went to 5 Carl Pavano starts, and I think he won 4. And I think those were the only 5 starts that he made as a Yankee.
I'd say I wonder if Jorge has a season ticket plan, because sometimes the way the schedule works out, like I know my Friday night plan, I wound up seeing Tanaka pitch like all the time because he was.
I used to see Pettit pitch all the time, and in that one year with Carl Pavano, he pitched like every Sunday. I was like, really?
So that does happen. I will say though, if you go back, and sometimes you get even a little bit jaded on both sides by the player being on the team you root for. But Stacy, CC is one of 3 lefty pitchers ever to have 3,000 strikeouts. He is a surefire Hall of Famer. And look at the numbers that he wasn't a compiler. He really pitched well up until the last year of his career. Look at the numbers he put together while like pitching through a really tough era for pitchers that never got to these levels of wins that he got to, never got to the strikeout numbers he got to. CC is a surefire Hall of Famer, in my opinion.
I had friends who were at that game.
Oh,
out in Arizona. No, out in Arizona where he got the
3,000 strikeout
3,000 strikeouts. Yeah.
What he was, no one to me deserves to be in like more in this ballot other than Ichiro. Ichiro too is, one of the greatest hitters of all time.
Amen, Nez. Amen. Sheffield, Clemens, Manny should be in the Hall of Fame. The hypocrisy is astounding. It is.
Yeah, it really is. Especially with David Ortiz now in, because again, he was on the same list A-Rod was on him because no one liked A-Rod publicly. They were like, nope, you did it. And then because everyone loved David Ortiz, it was, no, he didn't do it. He's fine.
Yeah.
It is crazy. And the hypocrisy. Do yourselves a favor and go back and go through Baseball Reference late at night and go into Manny Ramirez's page and look at what he did in some seasons and tell me that's not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Here's another one from Neds. I think this is funny. It says, what are they going to do going forward with these hitters that they'll have to let in 250 hitters and look at on base percentage instead? It's true. It's kind of funny now because this era, you have great players, but they're not hitting for average. And that's just how, so yeah, you're going to have to look at other numbers.
And the sport changes, right? And you have to be able, as an analyst, you have to be able to adapt with the times and change with the sport. And, you've seen it in other sports, particularly. And the one I'll go to most, Stacy, is football, because quarterbacks back in the day when the running game was popular, Dan Marino and John Elway, their all-time passing numbers are nowhere close to what some of these guys have nowadays. It's not even remotely close. So are you making the case that all modern-day quarterbacks should get in? Like Derek Carr is going to surpass all these guys. Is he a Hall of Famer? No. But all of these guys, so you do have to adapt with the sport. The throwing game is more popular now. Guys throw for more yards than ever before. The sport does change.
Yeah, speaking of that, we've already seen that. We've seen it with Cy Young voting. We've seen it where you look at a guy's numbers and you don't necessarily look at win-loss because you take into account maybe his teammates had something to do with it, like Jacob deGrom that one year where the Mets just he pitched to like a 1-point-something ERA. And then,
2 years in a row.
And then, either the bullpen would blow it or, the team wouldn't score for him. And, you saw the writers kind of change their way of thinking. And instead of looking at, this guy had 25 wins, he should be the Cy Young, they're looking more at different numbers. And I think that's going to happen, especially with the people who are now getting Hall of Fame votes, who are more sabermetrically inclined. They'll be able to look at those secondary, even tertiary numbers when you get really deep into people's stats. And you're going to see the elections get different as the years go on.
Well, I'll give you a good example because for years, the benchmark for getting in as a pitcher was 300 wins. Mm-hmm. And who would you right now today call the best pitcher in all of baseball? Give me the answer I want to hear, just for my point to be made.
Wait. Okay. So wait, how do you do you mean the best?
Right now, opening day, who are you starting for the Yankees?
Well, I would start Garrett Cole.
Of course. And Garrett Cole, to me, is one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. And barring his career falling apart this year, I think Garrett Cole's a Hall of Famer.
Oh, yeah.
He's on track for the Hall of Fame.
I would think so.
Garrett Cole has 2,251 career strikeouts. So he's well on his way to 3,000 strikeouts. As long as he stays relatively healthy. He's 33 years old. If he gives you 4 or 5 more years, he's going to get there. Now, Stacy, the crazy thing is the relative mark for years was 300 wins to get you in. And
I
that's,
know they can't do that anymore.
Cy Young's got 500 career wins. No one's ever getting there, but no one's ever getting to 300 because Garrett Cole has 153 career wins.
That's crazy.
It's impossible. He's not going to sniff 300 wins. He might get to 220.
Where's Verlander win total?
So he's a lot closer, and he could have retired.
Well, I mean, it's a lot closer because he's also a lot older. What is he? Could it be 42?
Yeah, exactly. But I think part of him might be staying in the league just to try and get that record for himself.
Because he was around 270 at one point, right? I think.
No, so actually, Justin Verlander's at 262.
Right.
So I don't know if he gets there, to be honest with you, because I mean he's gonna have to pitch a lot longer.
Not unless he pitches until he's like 45 or 46.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, he's got 3,400 career strikeouts. That's
but he's getting in. I mean,
Verlander
is a shoe-in.
But that's the thing.
Yeah.
You look at Justin Verlander and look at his career. He's gonna get it on the first ballot. He's absolutely a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's not gonna get to 300 wins. He's gonna get close, but he's not gonna get to 300 wins. That's my point that I'm making though, is you have to adapt with the game. And I want to say from a hitter's perspective, a guy that I think is going to be surefire to get in at the end when it's all, said and done will be Bryce Harper. He's a Hall of Fame caliber player, Hall of Fame caliber numbers, all of that. Bryce Harper's career batting average is 281. And I think a lot of people, and likely that average will dip a little bit before he retires because he's going to have some lean years at the end of his career. States that there's a lot of people that are big, old school baseball fans that would say Bryce Harper doesn't deserve to get in if he's not hitting that 300 hitter. And at the end of the day, Bryce Harper right now has 336 home runs, so he's going to finish with 500, well over 500 home runs. He's got 976 RBIs, so he's probably going to approach 1,800, 2,000 RBIs. I think Bryce Harper's a Hall of Famer. But Stacy, like the numbers change and the game changes and the way the game is played changes and stuff. Strikeouts are more prevalent than ever. So I think it's going to be interesting as we get down into the future and stuff of whether guys deserve to get in. I do wish there were harsher rules of who gets in. I wish it was a little more. I want to see the greatest of the great get in. I don't want to see this guy was really good. I don't want to see that. Like I'll tell you personally, and I get your point, and I think it's a reason why he deserves to be in the Yankees Hall of Fame. I don't think Andy Pettit's a Hall of Famer. I don't. And I know he's not going to get in because of the steroid stuff anyway. And I know, to me, he's in the he's absolutely in the Yankee Hall of Fame because of the amount of amazing starts that he pitched and the big postseason games and the must-win starts that he has. He's absolutely a Yankee Hall of Famer. But you look at Andy Pettit's career numbers, I don't think he sniffs the Hall of Fame. I don't. And I know he's pitched in big games and stuff, but those are games that are credited to the New York Yankees. Those are big New York Yankees games. I don't think they're big games in the history of baseball. Like, I don't look at Andy Pettit's career and think Hall of Fame. And to me, I think it's a debate. And to me, if it's a debate, then I don't think there's a great case for you.
Whatever.
You really don't think he's a Hall of Famer? Like, you really think he's like a surefire Major League Baseball Hall of Famer?
I think he's one of those guys at the bottom of the range where he could sneak in. Because as you said at the top, it's a museum.
Well, that's what always bothers me about the steroid stuff, is about not letting Manny Ramirez in, and not letting some of these guys that put up these absurd all-time numbers, how those guys are getting in. It always bothered me, because leaving these guys off and making it this public debate, and I'll give you, it does create news and stuff for the Hall of Fame, and it puts it in the. But every year, if you listen to sports radio, it's a huge topic for weeks on this guy got in, this guy, and we go on and we debate and everything like that. And it always comes down to the same stuff: is people aren't getting in because someone didn't like them as a person, or because the guy was a jerk at one point, or it's just some of these different debates and stuff. If you've ever been to the Hall of Fame, it is fascinating. But there are some guys that, and then you go there too, and you walk through and you look on your phone, Baseball Reference, and you're like, really? It's throughout all the years of the Hall of Fame, really.
Exactly. Thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings you a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And he is still putting out shows, even though he was evacuated from his house. Thankfully, he's safe. Coming up on Thursday's show, many Yankee coaches throughout the Yankee system have been poached in recent months and weeks. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? We'll have the answer for you. And what's the other thing we're teasing for Wednesday?
Wednesday, we're going to have Michael Kay on. He's going to discuss the ins and outs of his baseball career with the Yes Network and calling Yankee games and all that kind of stuff. Maybe we'll ask him a few Hall of Fame questions too, just to get his opinion on those kind of things too. So, Michael Kay will be on. I guess Wednesday morning, afternoon, sometime around then, right? It'll be out.
Yes, it'll be up at 6 a.m. on Wednesday morning.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, so that'll do it for this edition of Locked On Yankees. I'm Stacy Gotsoulias.
And I'm Brian McKeon. We'll catch you guys on Wednesday.